Hola, pues buenos días, buenas tardes ya. Bienvenidos nuevamente al segundo día del foro, El valor del diseño. Y pues en nombre de la Universidad Iberoamericana agradecemos a nuestros patrocinadores Escuchar Estudio y Déjate Querer por el mobiliario y esculturas que visten el escenario producido por Waterhouse Art Direction. Pues primero que nada me gustaría presentar, tenemos a un invitado muy especial, nuestro querido David Kuzuma. Es el presidente electo del World Design Organization. David Kuzuma es el vicepresidente también senior de gestión de productos e innovación de la empresa Oregon Tour. Durante su mandato se ha encargado de subvertir los límites convencionales de la innovación mediante el desarrollo de nuevas tecnologías y materiales para crear soluciones de productos que cambian el juego. Como resultado, se han desarrollado entre 150 y 200 nuevos productos cada año y los lanzaron en más de 100 países alrededor del mundo. Bienvenido, welcome.
Thank you.
This conversation will be in English, so if you are now in that mood, David, welcome to this forum, the value of design. We are really, really glad to have you here. We know you have a very limited time to be with us because of the agenda, but we are really grateful to have you here.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
So now maybe we can open the conversation with a little bit of your experience. We know that you were many years in Tupperware and that it was a great experience also in the food industry, but also I was very interested in all the details related with the production in terms of how you really construct a new model, a new product in general. Now with the, in general, with the technology that we are aspiring to reach or to domain, which is the 3D printing, which I know it's not the best, but sometimes there are very interesting dialogues in these new methodologies to produce, and at the same time to consider in the sense of sustainability, to consider what is really a good condition to produce and which one might be more slow, more expensive, maybe not really focused in all the resources consumed for it, which sometimes are also services and human resources. So maybe it would be interesting to know more about what is this reflection about Tupperware nowadays in that sense.
So thank you for the question. There's a lot to unpack there. What I would say is that 3D printing is definitely used in the design process of developing a product. The industry of 3D printing wants to become more focused on manufacturing. That's why they've even changed their name to additive manufacturing. For consumer products like Tupperware, where you have a run of so many million pieces, it doesn't make a lot of sense because the timing, as you were mentioning, is too slow. But I think that anyone who happens to be in the business or in the industry that uses polymers must have a strategy for 3D printing because this technology will continue to be improved. And over time, you can almost think about, instead of selling products, selling designs and having people print their own products at home. Yes.
Definitely. And also it was very interesting also to know that sometimes we forget what the real use of the product is. It is, in the sense of Tupperware, that it is to preserve food. And sometimes it should be, sometimes maybe we are just in the way or in the same rhythm of redesigning it instead of really questioning what the ideal use should be in relationship with the food, right? Like the food should be preserved, but some of them need air, fresh air, or some of others need other type of conditions also in relation with the materials that could help us also for a better world or well-being. So I don't know if you could tell us a little, some details.
Sure. So design and technology really must go together in order to solve a problem that can actually be produced, something that can become reality. When you talk about food conservation, we talk about more the quality of the food. So instead of preservation, the better word is conservation. How do you keep food fresher for a longer period of time? Maybe you cannot use it forever, but when you want to use it within the given time, you want it to be as fresh as possible during that time. So actually, while I was at Tupperware, we worked with a lot of universities that had this specialization. In the US, we called it land-grant universities. So land-grant universities are universities, there's only one in every state,
Okay.
that have been given or authorized by the government land and money to focus on technology for agriculture.
Yes.
So for us, it was important to connect with a number of these land-grant universities to talk about post-harvest science. How do you keep food fresher for a longer period of time?
Okay.
Design can play a big role because once you have the science, the important thing is how do you actually convert the science into a product that people can use?
Yeah, of course.
And this is very important because you talked about air. So one of our projects was to develop a container that could keep fruits and vegetables for a much longer period of use. It's very interesting when you really think about how fruits and vegetables actually live, because most food, when you buy it from the grocery store, you think, okay, you store it in the refrigerator and everything's okay. But in fact, most vegetables are actually, even though they've been harvested, they're still living. So you have to treat them in a way that they're still living and give them the opportunity to breathe. Some plants require more exchange of carbon dioxide from the inside of the container with oxygen on the outside. Some plants require less, and you have to be able to design for that variability. So a lot of the project was focused on how do we allow the user to customize their experience with the product so that depending on what type of food they put into the container, they are actually able to develop what environment is necessary to keep it for a longer period of time. So everything really boiled down to the size of the opening, because the exchange, broccoli, for example, is a very high respiration requirement. So
Okay.
the exchange needs to be very heavy. So then the science boiled down to the calculation of the size of the hole. And then berries, for example, strawberries, blueberries, raspberries, all require very little oxygen.
Okay.
So there you have it all the way closed. And then you have the area in between. So from a design point of view, it was a matter of making the ability for the consumer, the user, to be able to manipulate the opening so that depending on what they put in, the product just works.
As a refrigerator, right? Like it has also a regulator for the air.
It has a regulator, so it also regulates moisture, so you are correct. But you have to actually look at two different types of solutions. Most consumers don't realize this. If you are looking at fruits, for example, it's an amazing science. There are what's known as climacteric fruits, and there are non-climacteric fruits. So climacteric fruits basically means that once you pick the fruit, it continues to ripen. But if the non-climacteric fruits, if you pick them, it immediately goes into decline. So you have to know which type of fruits, and this is the science that all of the universities are focused on.
No, and I think that leads us to promote a culture of the user around also the tools we use every day, right? Like the tools and also the science of the food, which I know in general it's very little that you really know how to cook and how you should even cut the things or preserve the things in the refrigerator. So it's very interesting.
So I would say that the designer needs to understand the science and then convert the science into a solution that the user can use without having to worry about the science.
Okay.
So
That's
the user doesn't need to know about all of the differences. They only want to know that it works. So the type of vegetables or fruits that they put in, if we say that it stays longer, 2 weeks, 3 weeks longer. They just want to see this result.
Right. And
yes, besides the technical thing, I believe there is also a very important aspect of design that especially Tupperware puts a lot of attention. That is the cultural aspect of design, and I believe that, or at least that's what I used to know, that Tupperware had like 3 big lines, let's say, like storage, cooking, and on the go. And I believe these 3 different lines of products really aim at different cultural needs. How is Tupperware doing something to understand better the cultures, to understand better the users, and how does Tupperware tackle these challenges of cultural diversity?
So I can only give you a reflection of how it was when I was at Tupperware.
Yeah, sure.
How they do it now. Probably it's in a similar way, but I only want to speak from experience.
Yeah, sure.
So your question is very relevant because much of the design work starts at the voice of the customer. We have to know what fills customer needs, and it's not just a matter of asking the consumer or the customer, the end user, what's important to them. We have to ask those questions, but it's also to be able to define unspoken needs, which you get through ethnographic research, through observations, work like that. The important thing is that culture plays a big role in terms of products that are designed specifically for certain types of cuisine, for certain types of areas. Most of the products that we developed during the time I was at Tupperware were trying to focus on being global products. But we did have a number of regional products that were so specialized, but the market interest and the market need was so huge that we had to spend some time to focus on them. And I'll give you an example. We did a project for India. It was a product that was known as a masala keeper. And we did another project on an idli maker. Are you familiar with idli? It's like a white bread, and then you eat it with chutney, right? Yep. So we started to do the ethnographic research, but the problem that I had, or that we had as a team, was that we had no Indian designers on our team. So what we did was we reached out to our team in India and we asked, could you recommend a chef in India who could work with us? So we worked with the chef. The design team did a really great job trying to get the interests of the chef into the product. We would send the prototype to the chef and ask him to give his comments. When his comments came, normally they were so passionate. The information we got back was much more than we expected. We didn't feel obliged to use everything, but what we didn't use, we tried to explain why. The beauty of this was that when we were launching the product, I went to India, a number of us went to India, and we launched the product where we had the chef actually do the cooking. It was an idli maker for the microwave, and he served it to all of the guests at the product launch. It was really very well done, very spectacular, and it was with the blessing of an Indian chef.
I love that ending with the blessing. Great. And I think, just another question about Tupperware?
No.
Thank you for the intervention in relationship with Tupperware. I think, to be honest, we could be hours talking about it because I think it's very interesting and it's more related with our everyday life. But I also, we were wondering, and we know you're now president of the VDO, of the World Design Organization, and we also wanted to know how is, we have many questions, but one of them maybe could be, like, how do you see now the value of design in relation with the VDO? Like, what is the main focus now? Also considering a post-pandemic context, and also with the challenges of all the pollution and all this catastrophe that is coming very quickly towards us. So maybe if you would like to tell us a little bit more about it.
Yes. So the pandemic has definitely created opportunities for design to play a role. You know, there was a lot of concern at the beginning of the pandemic in terms of how can we live, how can we survive long term, because at the beginning there was no vaccine, there was no solution. What you saw in terms of design was more from a protective point of view, right?
Okay.
You would walk into department stores or grocery stores, and you'd see the invisible barriers. You know, you'd see touchless payments. Everything was as touchless as possible. You know, and I think moving forward, there are a lot of learnings that will translate into benefits for users and for people in general, because some of the things that have happened to create new possibilities, such as a lot of virtual companies, virtual services. I think a lot of those will remain with us, you know, as we move forward. I think that the world does have challenges moving forward. So we have, you know, you mentioned a couple of them, climate change. We can add to that poverty, food insecurity. You know, there are a lot of challenges that we need to focus on. Right now, WDO has a real focus in a new set of what we call portfolio projects. So portfolio projects are assigned to each board member. We have 11 members on the board. And some of the most relevant ones, I would say, have to do with the future of design. And the future of design plays a role in terms of not just products. A lot of times when people think about, you know, just as an example, industrial design or service design, or they think about products, they think about systems, they think about services. But really, when you really think about design as a solutions provider, it has an opportunity to really look at how do we improve the social standing of human civilization or human communities to improve the quality of life, right? So this means many things. Normally what we talk about with regards to design for a better world leads us to talk first about the human should come first, human needs. Okay. And then striking the right balance between people, planet, and then profit. Normally it's the other way around. They want to use design as a competitive way to increase profitability, make countries more competitive against other competition, which is never going to go away. But you know, it's for us to explain that design has more than just economics, right? We have also the opportunity to play a big role in social improvement, for example. So some of the examples I can give you, for example, is we had a project with the United Nations Women, okay. And this was just during COVID, actually. They had a project where they wanted to find solutions in solving violence against women and girls. So this is not a normal project for what you would think that designers would get involved. And in fact, they never worked with designers before. So this was a new opportunity to explain the value of design in terms of their work, in terms of what was most important to them. The whole focus was on how to change mindsets towards positive behavior. So a lot of the work was with architects, with designers, with design communities around the world, actually. Some of these design challenges were applied for by maybe hundreds, if not thousands, of designers around the world, and we could only pick maybe for this one about 150 to 200 designers to actually work on it. But working around the world was very interesting because you got a lot of different viewpoints. And the other thing that we found is that the work continued 24 hours around the world because people were up at different times of the day. The beauty of this project was that the UN Women, they found that the last 5 final solutions were so interesting to them that they decided to raise money to fund the projects because they were not interested in only a loose collection of ideas. They actually wanted something real to put into the public and to get the benefit and the value back in terms of real solutions. So we're planning to work with them again next to realize this, and I think this is where design can show that we have the ability beyond products and services.
Great. It was a great comment. Can I ask those 5 last suggestions or reflections you had? Do you know them?
From this project?
Yes.
Yes. So one was a traveling environmental display that allowed people to experience. The idea was that if people, mostly men, who never experienced this type of behavior against them, could experience it, perhaps they might think differently. Okay. So that would be one. Another one was talking about campuses, like universities, for example, and smaller communities where you could put up displays. Some of the architectural solutions that were proposed were incredible. They were displays that were like self-standing environmental statues or sculptures that you'd walk through, and then you would get feedback using also technology. And again, it was meant to explain to the people who are not used to this type of information, what's possible and what design can do to solve that problem. A third one was advertising, but they called it femvertising. So it was specifically towards advertising for feminine needs and for solutions in that area.
Okay.
The other 2 I have to think.
No, but it's something, a little seed now for us also to consider.
Yes.
I think it's great. I hope we can know more about it.
And as we go to phase 2, if anyone is interested in joining phase 2, as soon as the project has been scoped properly, then we will do another call for participation.
Thank you. Great.
What are the biggest challenges you see for designers in this, let's say, context about economical crisis, war, and these international conflicts that will affect all of us? How do you see the role of design? Are we being listened enough? Not. What is the challenges? What are the challenges?
So there are a lot of conflicts around the world that bring opportunity, right? We see wars, for example. Right now, what's happening on the European continent. There's an opportunity for design to provide solutions to the migration of people, displaced people due to wars. Also, many cities are experiencing a lot of homelessness. So how do we find solutions to homelessness? With regards to the climate, the climate issue, climate change, we have, I was mentioning just a little bit earlier that we have some focus areas within WDO that really try to focus on the future of the design profession and how we can work towards some of these solutions. So we're working towards a policy for design policy So this is really interesting because design policy is focused on how do we teach governments and local communities how to utilize design as a lever for improving the social status and the quality of life within their region. Most design policy efforts up to today has been, again, on this issue of competitiveness, using design to stir economic progress. But we're trying to look at it in a slightly different light. We want to look at what is important to the most number of people beyond national boundaries. So this would be things related to the climate, things related to living conditions, poverty, food, those sort of things. And trying to put that all into some kind of responsible policy document that at least encourages those local communities to have this top of mind when they're putting together a strategy for their own community.
And sometimes also to consider the ethics of design, right? Like, because in this competitiveness, sometimes it doesn't matter at what cost you're gonna, propose any kind of new product or service. But on the ethics, maybe also considering, as we were mentioning at the beginning, like how many people are gonna spend time, money, resources in general, and maybe you don't consider it. And as long as it is being supported economically,
yes,
you don't
I
have
think it's important to look at, definitely on the ethical side. It's not a matter of just getting the most beautiful design so that it gets put in museums, for example. Mm-hmm. It's about creating a solution that gets used the most number of times, even multiple times a day if possible, because then you're bringing benefit to the user. If it's something that is used once a year, then you can question whether you're actually providing the benefit, right? But there's also ethics with regards to the environment. Mm-hmm. The company that I'm currently working for, Oregon Tool, is really focused on forestry, lawn and garden, agriculture, and also farming. So their focus is, again, on agriculture, but from a different side, because forestry, they have these emergency packages in their warehouses that they send out during the time of emergencies. They have products that we make, for example, like saw chains, and they make a lot of tools for each of those industries. So whenever you have forest fires, for example, we get a call from some of the municipalities asking for assistance, or let's say like the hurricane that just went through Florida. We also would be asked for help from municipalities like that as well. And we have these kits to send out as well, to help them cut power lines that have been toppled because of poles that have broken, or forest fires where they have to make a clearing to contain the fire. So I think that also plays to a lot of ethics and also feeds to the sustainability story.
Great.
How do you see what is your vision about the future of design, talking about this also new, well, not really new, but questions about artificial intelligence, mm-hmm. about integrating into the living the virtual reality, mm-hmm. augmented reality. How do you see this world?
So I have very strong opinions in this area. Because I had mentioned earlier that design and technology need to be integrated. Yeah. But there's a reason for that. Because technology is going to continue to move at very fast speeds, faster and faster. You know about all of these, the fourth revolution, for example, the fourth industrial revolution, and then the connectivity getting faster and faster, Wi-Fi 6 and so on, right? The role of design is to make sure that it's not technology that should be leading the type of products and the type of interfaces that humans will be using in the future. It should be design making sure that the technologies are able to provide the maximum benefit.
This is wonderful. Regarding this topic, what would be the best, or what would be the skills that this designer needs to have in order to face these challenges, in order to understand the technologies, but also not be driven completely by technologies, but understanding how the world is?
Sure. I would say that design has a role to be the majority integrator of all different professions. So you've got design. Sometimes we fool ourselves by thinking that design can come up with the solutions by ourselves. And maybe in some cases we can, but really the best designs are the ones that are collaborative. And I think that these types of partnerships are really going to be what provides the best solutions as we move forward. We can teach other professions about design thinking and about how to make solutions that are more user-centric, that are developed, for the human versus, for just technology's sake. And I think that, it's going to take an incorporation of synergy between design, engineering, business, social sciences, and so on. I mean, the more integrated we are with regards to partnerships, I think the better our solutions will be moving forward.
Actually, in our new degrees, we are looking forward towards it, like to really be able to do transdisciplinary collaboration for projects. And if you would like to give us some tips, that would be great.
Sure.
Like, which challenges does that face, right? Like, collaborating sounds always like beautiful, but we know that on the way, it's always difficult. Like, I don't know, maybe in all the projects you have been involved, maybe some tips, maybe some top 10 instructions or guidances to know how to do it on the best way. Could you give us them?
So I don't know if I have a top 10, but I can give you some guidance.
Please.
Typically speaking, it's important to collaborate on an equal level with other disciplines, because you don't want one discipline leading the direction of all the other disciplines, because then it becomes a solution that's more one-sided. The important thing, though, is that everyone still should understand their role. There's a role for design, there's a role for technology and engineering, there's a role for business, there's a role for, again, social scientists, people who are focused on the human being, anthropologists. Everyone plays a role, and everyone can give their own opinions about the other roles. But at the end of the day, it's important that, again, it's back to what I was mentioning before. Design cannot be self-serving either, right? We have to make sure that we are beyond the egos. I think that in order to be a designer, you have to have at least some ego, but you have to be beyond the ego so that you're open up to understanding and listening to other disciplines. The important thing is that normally we are very free and very quick to speak, but we're very slow to listen. So nice. If we would listen a little bit more, I think it would be a better integration.
Nice. Well, we just have some little time to close. Thank you very much, really, for coming here.
Oh, thank you.
We hope we are now in more contact with all these future ideas that are left here in this conversation. And yeah, in the name of the university, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, David.
Thank you.
For being with us and sharing your experience on design. And we'll certainly aim at the same purpose.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's been an
Thank
honor.
you very much.
It's been an honor.